Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 14th day of September 2020. We're looking at let me get my shawl on here. It's a little cold in the still room this morning. Then it's going to get too warm, so I've got my fan ready just in case, crone issues. Anyhow. It's the 14th day of the month, so we're talking a 5 energy today, a 5 numerology, and that's change and all of that, fulfillment, protection. You can think the pentagram if you like. That's a symbol of protection and of air, fire, water, and earth plus spirit. When it's inverted and the point is pointing downward, it does not mean the devil. It simply means that the focus is on form and not and on issues of material presence and all of that. It can also mean focus on the ego. So that's really what you're looking at when you look at the devil card. You're looking at being a slave to your own desires and all of that. It's not about being a slave to the devil. We always want to personify everything, don't we? It's so odd. But anyway, let's go ahead. If this is your first time here, normally what I've done in the past is I take a while to take the 3 cards, but I'm going to go ahead and do them. I'm going to do them randomly, though. I will take the 13th one each time. If we need a 4th card, we'll know that after looking at the first 3. But let's go ahead and and take the first 3 cards. Oh, and welcome if you are here for the first time. I appreciate you stopping by, and I'd love you to click subscribe and join us Monday through Thursday as we look at the cards and the runes and how they can influence and enhance our lives. So let's go ahead and take our first 3 cards and see what we have. Well, we have the 5 of Swords for the first one. Ooh. Well, it's Monday. I haven't shuffled the deck since Thursday. That's not true. I did shuffle. I did do a reading for myself a couple of days ago. I think it was Saturday. It was a 6-card reading. Justice, 11th card of the Major Arcana. We'll try to shuffle one more time. There we go. See, I can shuffle cards. I take the 13th one for randomness sake. I don't want my shuffling or lack thereof to influence the flow of the cards. Otherwise, you can... Sometimes I'll get the same cards from the day before. It's like, oh, well, I didn't shuffle that deck enough. So anyway, here we're looking at the 4 of Pentacles. So, all right, let's take a look at the order we want this to have. I think we're going to leave Justice in the center, make that the underlying or overshadowing, however you want to look at it. You can call it a significator or just the overshadowing or overarching influences. Your major cards, I view them as soul archetypes. A lot of tarot readers do. And so it's really the soul's primary things that the soul needs to remember and consider. And then the smaller cards are the more details of the day and of the experience. So let's see, 11, we're not going to reduce that number. So 4 and 5 is 9. If we did, we'd have an overall, if we reduce the 11 to 2, then we would have, again, an 11 for the reading. So I think that we're looking at, the 11 is the master number for illumination and awakening, basically. So I think that with all of the revelations that we've had of the last couple of weeks, I have to just say, and I've said this before, I don't understand if there were tapes out, if Bob Woodward had tapes, why didn't he at least release them just before, the kids were going back to school in August? Why not at the end of, because I think what I read was that his last interview with what's his name was in the last half of July. So why not release at least the 2 that we've heard about the kids, what it does to children, and what it does to people, and what this is, and how bad it is, how bad the virus is. Why didn't he do that? it might have, I mean, my God, there comes a point, and I hear all these people say, well, it's the publisher and all that he owes. Sure, but right now these are weird, crazy, intense times where we've got a virus that we still don't understand, because now we're having to think about what happens about the long-term effects on the body and all of that, and what some people are going to be coping with. And it's not just to old people, it's people of all ages and young people in their 20s and 30s. I don't know. This is something else. Whatever this is, I don't know, but we don't know everything about it, right? So for a president of a country to behave the way he is and to talk to people the way he does about this, that's just criminal. And we need to understand that. We need to awaken to that truth and let that level of justice resonate for what needs to happen now, right? So let's take a look at Lady Justice as the 11th card of the Major Arcana. Again, we're talking about the master number for illumination and awakening. She sits between essentially two pillars. She has a sword in one hand. It's held straight up to spirit. In her right hand, in her hand of power, and in her receptive hand, she is holding the scales. And if you want to look at it the opposite side, where you're not looking at from her perspective, then well, I can't do that. I can't look at it backwards. So anyway, we'll just leave it the way that it is. She has a crown on her head. She's got red. She's wearing a red gown. She's got a red drape behind her in between the two pillars. So that's red is a color for power. It's a color for Mars energy. But justice is also about the air element and keeping things, because the air element is about the intellect, reason, justice, fairness, balance, all of that. And did I say intellect? I think I did. And it's balancing will with intellect, basically. Depending upon how you think about things, you'll then manifest behavior based on that thinking. So if you have thinking that is not balanced, it's not based on justice, then think about what that transpires, right? What can happen as a result of faulty reasoning or imbalanced reasoning. Or, the perfect example is racist behavior and beliefs. Racist beliefs translates into racist behavior. And sometimes that results in violence against other people. If the racism wasn't there, if you really viewed everybody as a brother and as the other side of self, then, which from a spirit standpoint, that's the truth, right? But if you don't see it that way, maybe how you treat others is less than good. And I think that that's what you're seeing play out right now in this country and around the world, really, but most immediately for our experience in this country. Here we have a 5 of Swords. We see a guy, well, first of all, we see some really sketchy brown clouds, and that's deception. This is an air element, again, with the swords. And so, again, we're talking reason, balance, justice, fairness. This guy is picking up the swords. The other two aren't paying any attention. One is down by the water. You can see that line of demarcation back there. I'll hold that up a little more closely. Between the waters of our emotions, and you can see they're just kind of jumpy a little bit, not roiling about or anything, but so things have calmed down. The situation that this is describing is over, in other words. But you can see the man in the background there closest to the water. He's holding his head. He's bereft. He's upset. He's upset about what's happened. You see the other guy there looking toward him and not paying attention to what the other guy in the front here is doing, but he's collecting the swords. 2 are still laying on the ground. In other words, he won. But what did he win? When you see like the 5 of Wands, you're seeing a bunch of playful struggle, but it's not really, kind of a little bit of a battle of wills, but they're not hitting one another. But here, clearly something bad has happened. I want to check one thing here. I mean, clearly the guy in front has won the battle. There's an element of conquest here. But he's done it through deceptive means. So in a sense, the two people in the background have been played, and they're having to pick up the pieces. Well, they actually haven't even started doing that yet. The pieces of their lives are still on the ground, so they've yet to do that. Maybe he's going to take them. Who knows? That's the implication here, isn't it? Because it's almost like his right foot has stepped forward there. He's grabbed the one and he's ready to take the other. So in a sense, you have the loss of the two people that, or at least the one by the water's edge, where he knows he's lost everything at the hands of this other person, at the hands of deception. He doesn't feel like there's anything he can do. And it may seem trite to say, but truth will be his ultimate protection. And at the end of the day, isn't that really all we have, is truth? But instead, I think that we're all dealing with deception here, and at the hands of somebody who, or a group of somebodies that are guiding all of this deceptive process that we're all dealing with, this deceptive behavior. And I think that this card explains it. This is the Four of Pentacles. Pentacles is the earth element, and it's about our physical surroundings. It's about our life in form. And here you see again the same line of demarcation. He separates himself, just as has happened here, from the emotion. They have separated themselves from the emotion of this, but yet they still feel it. But the separation indicates here that there's nothing they can do, or at least they feel like there's nothing that they can do. There's no compassion, no empathy, no nothing for these people. There's just a guy who's pretty happy with what he did to him, and how he did it with deception and dishonor, either on behalf of the king, or this represents the king. But you can see the king holding on to his money. He displays it, the gold everywhere. Turns his back on the kingdom, leaving it to fend for itself, while the only thing he's concerned about is his money and his gold. Again, displaying it on his crown, holding tight in his arms, and putting his feet on them. You know, I've always been interested in the fact that he has his feet on the coins, because it really shows, in other words, it shows wealth gained through dishonorable means, instead of making that work for him in his life in a way that benefits other people in his family, or something benefits, if he's a businessman, letting it benefit his the people he does business with, or his community, or whatever, having a positive impact there. Instead, he views even the wealth with such disdain, or with such entitlement. Like, of course he should be wealthy. Of course he should have it all. But stepping on it, it's done at the expense of other people in the process. So it even shows his ultimate disdain for even that, for even his own supposed wealth. But it's not wealth that's gained through hard work, like in the Eight. It's the Eight of Pentacles shows a progression. It shows building wealth through hard work. But he doesn't have to work hard. It's just, he just gets it by stepping on people to do it. I cannot stand this card. It's just so, it shows a man who's miserly, hangs on to everything, and keeps trying to gather more at the expense, again, stepping on other people to do that. Because you don't build wealth in a vacuum, I mean, unless you inherit it all. You don't build wealth in a vacuum. You do it by doing business out in the world. At least most people do. So I think you can see where issues of justice are really, this is all an issue of justice, whether you're talking about the miserly king or you're talking about the person who deceives others, in a battle of intellect and battle of words. And, you've got a guy who wins the argument, but really, what has he won? The others have turned their back on him, so they know it was done by deceptive means. The rune today is Fehu. It's the first rune of the Elder Futhark, and we're talking about Fehu. We're talking about the sending rune. It's really useful in magic. You can use it as the sending influence when you cast your intention during a working. But it gets things in motion. But again, the key word for Fehu is cattle or wealth. So it's interesting, that issues of wealth and fairness and justice, how that wealth, how the battles that are won are either won through deception and greed, or are they won through balanced integrity, balanced decisions, a focus on spirit. How are we doing that? Is justice able to be expressed today? Or are we going to be caught up in, dealing with somebody like this who does nothing but deceive with the words they say? You look at the theme of this administration right now is they tell you what they want you to believe. Now, it's the complete opposite of the truth. It's the complete opposite of what is. But they want to tell you what they want you to believe, and they do it in such an inflammatory way and provocative way that depending, maybe you just believe it because it just sounds so oh my God, like they're telling you a secret or something that only you know. No. They're lying. They're just lying. They lie all the time. My husband just told me before I started this that the vice president says that we are more respected in the world today than we've ever been. No, we're not. No, we're not. The world is afraid for us, those that are, live a positive and loving life, a life with integrity. Now, those that are dictators, well, sure. But is that what you want? You want to live a world where you live in fascism? No. No, that's already been proven to be a pretty harsh way to live. A lot of the people in your country die when you live under a dictator like that. And I think that's, of course, what we're seeing now. We're getting close to 200,000 people dead from the virus that didn't have to die. All because he didn't tell the truth. All because he told another tale that was the complete opposite. Just listen to Bob Woodward's tapes. I'm not happy though with him that he didn't release them ahead of publication. At least those two. It would have made people want to know more, I think. But now I'm a little upset, and I canceled the order of the book. I'm not going to read it. I won't put money in his pocket. I just won't. I think he, as a mother, as a grandmother, I watch in horror of all of this. So the justice is not there now in our country. It's just gone and given to this guy because he feels entitled to it. He wants to govern in a way that makes him feel like the taxpayer dollars belong to him personally. He can do anything he wants to them with them, and it's not true. But the system of justice has been so damaged in our country now that it'll be difficult. I mean, you have to get rid of all of them. Otherwise, I don't know how you right the ship. Excuse me, because there's just too much influence that does not confer justice, that does the opposite of it, that leads through deceptive means, through deceptive words, because that's really what this is. Words that cloud the issue and deceive others into believing everything's just okay. Take the masks off, right? No. Oh, well, if we had done it right away, sure. You know, if we had had a national mask policy right away, hunkered down right away, we might be in a very different position right now. If we all gotten on board with how are we going to defeat this virus, we rose up together and did that, yeah, we might be in a little different place right now. But we're not. We're where we are. And it's no place good, because winter's approaching, the flu season's approaching, that's going to be on top of all of this. And now you've got people displaced by fires, and likely one of the worst hurricane seasons we've had. That's what I've heard. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm going to tell you right now, I just did the geomancy rune, and it's rubeus. I want to make sure about that. Yep. I didn't get any white paper ready for this, so I'm going to do it on a green Post-it note, but I'll draw out rubeus for you. Well, actually, rather than doing that, let me just get my already done geomancy runes and find it. Rubeus, though, unlike Rubeus Hagrid, well, you know how Rubeus Hagrid just always speaks without thinking? I mean, it's never anything bad, mind you. But at the same time, that's Albus, that's the opposite. I find it so interesting. She used, here we are. She used geomancy rune names for some of her characters. Albus is actually the complement of Rubeus. This would be Albus. This is Rubeus. But now Rubeus is thought by geomancers of old to be an evil influence. In fact, it's one of the runes, I believe, that if you throw it first in a reading, you're supposed to destroy the reading and not go any further. It's just too evil to continue. It's like, well, we're not going to be such snowflakey about that here. We're going to go ahead and, witches are a little less so. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at it and understand that the Rubeus influence is what's happening here and here. Okay. You want to call it evil? You can. I think anybody who lies to the country the way this man does continually, and the way people who surround him do, I think the what is it, the GOP chairwoman, she's a Romney, although he made her take the Romney part out of her name because he couldn't look at that, I guess. Made some comment about Biden yesterday that said something to the effect that Biden is responsible for not, for what the measures he's taken regarding the virus and keeping everybody safe. He's not in government. It's like you get in the flow of, but here's the thing about lying, okay? Once you get in the flow of that, and you're not the one lying, you're the one listening to it and following along and believing the lies, it's a flow of energy you've gotten into. It's not even necessarily a conscious choice. It's a choice you've made early on to believe this man and everything that follows. And the critical thinking of hearing and seeing and witnessing and experiencing what follows falls away. I mean, it really is. I mean, they talk about it being cult-like behavior. It really is. It's a cult-like response where critical thinking stops and belief is the only thing left. The problem is if you've got somebody lying to you and you don't stop and think about, wait a minute, something about this doesn't seem right. If you don't have that moment of pause where you can then maybe start paying closer attention. Okay, maybe you don't reject him out of hand on the first time, or maybe even the second lie. But when you get to the third and the fourth and the 4 millionth, I mean, come on. If you're not rejecting those lies right out of hand the second they come out of their mouths, then you're in a flow of energy where you're no longer thinking for yourself. And you're simply allowing a group of people led by one person to then dictate your behavior, your belief structure, and you've given all of yourself, all of your own personal sovereignty away to people who are only deceiving you in order to keep power and control over you. That's what's happening now. And it's happening from this man who wants to retain power, stepping on others to get it, retain wealth, which is questionable how much he has to begin with. You see, there was deception around that as well. But, for the sake of argument, say he is a millionaire. I doubt it's a billionaire, but say he's a millionaire. How'd he get it? Did he get it through hard work, or did he get it through stepping on other people, manipulating other people? I think that's where we are now. And if we can't find our balance, if we can't find justice again, if we can't employ justice again, if justice is dead now in this country, because I will tell you that's how it feels. Because who else would go out and have rallies right after the truth comes out about what he said about about the virus being bad for children and being airborne? You get it through the air. Tough to deal with, he said, or something to that effect. Said this back in February as he goes and has more rallies and infects more people. I've said this before, Maya Angelou said to Oprah, when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. It's hard to be that judgmental right off the bat with somebody, right? You want to be sure. But the problem with being sure is you're in that kind of risky area where, again, you could get into someone else's flow and you give up all personal sovereignty to that individual. And pretty soon they are dictating your belief structure and then in turn your behavior. You can't allow that. You just can't. So I think that that's what this is describing today. I think that we need to understand the rubious energy underneath it, the evil energy, the evil intent. It's another thing about the swords. It's about intention. And so what intention do we want to cast? With Fehu, what intention do we want to cast today? Do we want to cast one that's true justice in honor and dignity and integrity? Or do we let these two idiots win? Deception and foul play and lies and usury. What do we want? What do we want the world to be? What do we want our immediate world to be? I have to wonder if some people that are in the flow of this are people that have been deceived all their lives. In their families, maybe in their family structure, it was filled with such deception. I don't know. So they're sort of in that mode, maybe. I don't know. But right now, we have to think critically over what we're hearing and seeing and witnessing and understand just how bad it is. People have died because of these lies. And realistically, that's all we need to know, isn't it? Yeah. So I guess that's it. We'll get together tomorrow and do this all over again. The esoteric influences are likely finished uploading. I'm going to post those, so check for those on the blog as well. If you don't see them on YouTube, you can go over to the blog at imsteppingaside.com. The blog's called Stepping Aside. So it's a witch and herbalism blog. And we'll talk again tomorrow. This will also go up there as well. And be good to yourself. Be good to one another. But do that by wearing a mask if you're around anyone right now, whether you're inside or out. Just wear a mask. Not just a face shield, but a mask. And we'll see you tomorrow, and blessed be.